right?
2 in a row. And it was impressive against the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday. Darin Gantt, Panthers.com. And if I may ask you, I'm not going to accuse you of being a fan of the Panthers. I am certainly not a fan of the Panthers. You certainly have been covering them for as long as I know. So let me just ask you this question. Is there a better visiting fan base to beat than that of the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, if there is, we'll find out in a couple weeks, won't we? When the Buffalo Bills roll into town. Although I don't even know if they count as visiting fan base, because hell, they all live here now.
I know we have plenty. My wife is from the Buffalo area, so just one of our staffers here, our social media director. She was just up at a wedding, but like we get it. It's a cool place to live. What impressed you?
It's the center of the universe, Charlotte, North Carolina, and I understand why people want to come here. I just don't appreciate them telling me how to drive.
Yeah, they will do that. There's no doubt about it. What impressed you the most about 30-27?
I can say about 30-27, but also just about what they've done in general. The Carolina Panthers might be a brand new football team full of analytics and new people and young head coaches and all this kind of stuff. They're playing old school football right now. That team is top 10 in the league in defense, 9th against the run. They're 4th in the league in running the ball. Run, stop the run is not going to get you invited to the Sloan Sports Analytic Conference, but it sure does work at football, don't it?
Yep.
I mean, and when you can do those things, it's very basic football stuff. And, whenever anybody gets into trouble, what does the coach always say? We're going to go back to basics this week. The Carolina Panthers are doing those quote-unquote basic things, but they're not basic because not everybody can do them, and not everybody can do them in the way they're doing them right now. And it's giving them a chance to do all the other stuff. When you can stop the run, when you can make the Miami Dolphins, Dallas Cowboys one-dimensional, then you've got an opportunity to win a game against two offenses that either are explosive and among the best in the league or have the opportunity to be. And it's a stability that it offers to the entire rest of the operation that allows all the other stuff to grow.
Darin Gantt, Panthers.com, is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. We're asking the old guy questions. So it does bring me to I'm going to wait it's not really a negative question, but I'm going to wait to talk about why they haven't been doing this until the last couple of games. And let me ask you this, because I also think in the last 2 games, after a very, we'll just call it, less than ideal start against Miami for Bryce Young, did the touchdown pass against, or rather, the touchdown pass to Xavier Legette in the first half of the game against Miami.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One
he threw to a place that XL was running in the opposite direction of at the time he threw it?
Yep.
That one?
The trust throw. Did that repair Legette and Young at the same time?
Well, I mean, the framing of your question assumes that those two were broken. And again, part of my deal here, and we joke about ask the old guy, but having stood around and watched a lot of football for a long time, you understand it's a long season.
Yep.
So we overreact to things as a media. That's what we do. That's how we keep the lights on at our respective homes. And I guess if you had to say, oh my God, what's wrong with Xavier Legette after 2 weeks of a season? I guess sure, but. These are the plays he's capable of. And I keep going back to a conversation I had with Dave Canales about XL back in the offseason, probably before they drafted it was before they drafted T-Mac. And Dave is an old receivers coach. So he starts talking about XL, and he's like, and here's what we want him to here are the landmarks we want him to hit year 2. Here are the landmarks we want him to hit in year 3. He's thinking 2 and 3 years down the road with this guy. So it's not as if the Carolina Panthers were about to give up on anybody or anything like that. XL's a big, fast guy, and big, fast guys who have shown promise as receivers tend to get a lot of chances. And, I think there's a recognition it's a long year. I think for Bryce, sometimes it takes hitting that one to make the next one easier. You got to get a little, we're all human beings. You need positive reinforcement of your habits. And when, things go poorly, you begin to question the habits. But when you do things the right way, the same way every day, things tend to work out for you. And Bryce is certainly a creature of habit. And, he's kind of bounced back. I love the fact that, I think there's some people who try to turn this into a negative, but the guy has won 9 games in his career. 8 of them have been on game-winning drives in the fourth quarter, and 6 of those in the last 16 games he's played. I mean, that's a vibe is what that is, and the fact that he's shown his ability to be resilient within the course of games that haven't gone well, I think that's nothing but a positive for this bunch. And again, it works in concert with what I was talking about early with the run game and the way the offensive line's playing. That allows time for all the other stuff to grow around it. And, it's good. They've gotten back to that normal place. So
Darin Gantt is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. I personally thought that Bryce and Legette were broken as a tandem. I loved that throw, and that throw made me go, all right, now there's something we can work with back in the trust tree. We know Tepper and McMillan is going to be an elite receiver. Still has a few too many drops. The pass that went through his hands was the only interception for Bryce in the game against Dallas. But let me get to the run game because it was so good for the last 2 games. And it won't be as good against the Jets because the Jets are much better at stopping it than were the Cowboys or the Dolphins. But it did seem like they committed to it in these 2 games as opposed to maybe the games prior to this. Was that about Dowdle, or was it about, all right, we're going to have to do this the right way?
I mean, I think that's the offense Dave Canales has always wanted to run. I mean, I don't know that Dave's ever met Dan Henning, but the offense he's running is very old school, Joe Gibbs, Washington. We're going to run it a bunch behind a good offensive line and throw it downfield and get our yards in chunks when we have to throw it. And I just think it's such a stable platform to build from that's what a lot of coaches want to do. Dave talks about wanting to stubbornly run the ball, and it's not even stubborn when you're wheeling off 5 and 6 yards at a time. So when you're never in 3rd and long, it gives you a chance to sustain drives, helps the defense, all that complimentary football stuff that everybody loves to talk about. And it's a good thing. But I just think that's who he is as a coach and a play caller, because he knows that creates more opportunities for all the other stuff to grow. And, when you get somebody on a heater like Rico's on right now, you just turn around and keep handing it to him. Again, Dan Henning famously said, feed the stud, when Steve Smith was the stud. And, Dan probably threw it more than was in his nature. But when you got a Steve Smith on a heater like he was on in 03 to 05, you continue to give it to him. And, that's what they're doing. And that's why I think, I'm sitting here going through mailbag now, writing it for later this afternoon at Panthers.com. And there's a whole bunch of versions of, what are you going to do with Chuba and Rico now?
So, what are you going to do?
You're going to hand it to both of them. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the black and white television days of Stephen Davis and Sean Foster and Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams. And the reality is, in a 17-game season especially, one of them's not going to be available for a minute.
Right.
And so you hand it to the other one and let him carry the load. And, there's going to come a point. I think it's also worth remembering that as well as Rico's played the last 2 weeks, there have been stretches in the fourth quarter where he's cramped up and had to come to the sideline and let Trevor Etienne do it. And so I don't think that necessarily happens if Chuba is well and carrying half the load. I mean, during the early part of the season, that snap split was something like 65-35. I think that's going to normalize a little bit. That's probably going to come back closer to – I don't think there's ever going to be a situation where it's only one of them and then the other one's not really doing anything. I mean, it's smart business to let them both go. And, when it's working with one, and then let the other guy sit and get a drink of pickle juice so he doesn't cramp up in the fourth quarter.
I think the one advantage Dowdle definitely has, he seems more comfortable catching the ball out of the backfield than Hubbard, and that I thought was a noticeable part of how Carolina approached the game offensively, and I think you need that. I watched, it was such a contrast, Darin. I watched the Jets and the Broncos first, and it is a rarity for me to have a palate cleanser be the Panthers, especially offensively. But after watching 13-11, which was, I think, objectively the worst football game I've ever watched, NFL football game I've ever watched, and I'm talking about fog games, snow games. There was no excuse for that game to be that bad, but it was. I thought the Panthers and the Cowboys was just super entertaining, and the right team won. The mission against the Jets, I don't know if Garrett Wilson is going to play. I'm not sure it matters because they can't get the ball to him. I don't know who J.C. Horn's going to cover. So the Panthers are road favorites now. When was the last time the Panthers were favored on the road?
That's, since I don't invest in those markets, that's a tough question for me to answer because gambling's illegal here at Bushwood, and I never slice. But it's the challenge for the Carolina Panthers this week is to, here's that word again, normal. Be normal on the road. Carry that good football from home where you run the ball and stop the run. Justin Fields did not have a great game last week. This just in. But Justin Fields is a guy that can run around and create problems for people because of the way he plays. Now, if you don't play disciplined run defense, can Justin Fields create problems for you? Of course he can, And is Steve Wilks and what has been a pretty salty defense capable of giving a team problems? It is. And don't think for a second Steve's not, lathered up for this game. He wants to prove to people those guys don't want to be 0-6. So the Panthers aren't at a point in their development as a team to take anybody lightly in the NFL.
No,
nobody is at that point, really. So, look at last night's game. Buffalo's the team we all had penciled into the Super Bowl this year, and they got worked by Atlanta, who lost 30-0 here a couple weeks ago. So it's the circle of life in the NFL, and that stuff all rolls around. But I think this is a big week for them, not from a win-loss standpoint, but from a just play the same way you did the last 2 weeks.
There's a responsibility.
In a different building, in a place you don't live. So, I think we'll see how it all goes, but this team is getting to a place of stable and normal that it hadn't been for a minute, and that's a good thing. So now they just got to keep building on it, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I personally believe that winning a game that you're supposed to win, and that's probably a stretch for talking about the Panthers. This is not disrespectful. Any game saying that they're supposed to win this game, and they are a very, very slight favorite on the road. By the way, November 14th, 2021 in Atlanta, last time the Panthers were road favorites in a game. And I have to go back.
They didn't win that game either, did they?
I have probably not in Atlanta.
Because 2021 was when they won the first three, got to 5-5 in the Cam Newton I'm back game in Arizona, and finished the season by losing 7 straight. That one?
Probably not. Probably not a win. But I've always thought that when people think you're supposed to win a game, those games for a team that is trying to break through and establish something, those are the hardest games to win. It's easier to pull off an upset than it is to win a game that you are theoretically supposed to win. And I think that will be the biggest challenge for this group. Final thing for you, we only have about a minute. Because I think the bigger story of the game, and you mentioned it earlier, was their defense, making Dallas one-dimensional. Dak Prescott and George Pickens could not beat them. They got enough pressure on the quarterback, but ultimately it was Derrick Brown and the run defense doing work. What have you seen on that side of the ball?
Well, I've seen a lot more people, and I've seen a lot more Derrick Brown, and that makes a big difference in anything. We got a picture on Panthers.com the other day of Derrick Brown towering over Terrence Steele, the Cowboys tackle. Terrence Steele's 6'6", 320, and Derrick was standing over the top of him the way I would stand over a small child. I mean, it's like, holy cow, that's Derrick Brown we're talking about. I mean, listen, Dan Morgan did this intentionally. He played on them old John Fox teams that were run, stop the run. So the fact that he built his team by investing in offensive linemen last year, defensive linemen this year, and adding a Derrick Brown to the mix, I mean, that's on purpose. That's what he knows, and that's what he's trying to create here. So the run defense, to have set all the records they set in that area last year, to have been 32nd in all the defensive stuff, and now to look up and see them 9th in the league in run defense, that is not a statement I thought I was going to be making. I mean, I thought if this team could get to decent at defense, if they could be 16, 17, 18, somewhere in that range, that would be a good thing. That would be a good step considering where they were building from a year ago, and they've surpassed that already. Now you just got to keep doing it. And again, as you said, that's a challenge for a young team.
Yep.
You got to learn how to do those kind of things. You got to learn how to win on the road. That's a thing. You've got to learn how to play as a favorite. That's a skill you've got to learn as much as, wham blocks or whatever football jargon you want to throw on it. I mean, It's just, it's a muscle you've got to exercise, and they haven't built it up quite yet, but, we'll see. They're doing a lot of stuff they hadn't done in a minute.
Darin Gantt, Ask the Old Guy, Panthers.com, at Darin Gantt on Twitter, 2 T's for extra talent. Real quick, don't believe everything Google AI tells you, because the information I just gave you about the opponent was wrong. It was actually that game at Arizona when they were the last favorite. But I have to go back and double-check that because Google sucks.
Listen, don't trust artificial intelligence. Trust actual intelligence.
The real AI. Darin, thank you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. See y'all.
You got it. Darin Gantt here.